Hey there, and thank you for joining us tonight on the Designated Pundits. It's 2025, and we're previewing the New York Red Bulls 2025 Major League Soccer season. We are back today, joined by Mark Fishkin from Seeing Red to talk about the New York Red Bulls 2025 Major League Soccer season. We got a little bit of a recap before we go into a preview of the 2025 Major League Soccer season. Mark, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. Also, my co-host Scott Omer and Sir Alex back in the studio after a short little absence. I know we're doing some West Coast teams, doing some very late night shoots over the next week or so. But make sure you go to thedesignatedpundits.com, youtube.com/@thedesignated_pundits, or to your favorite podcast host. You can find all of our stuff there. We have 30 Major League Soccer teams now. Seems like a whole lot. We're previewing each and every one. This is preview number 4, the New York Red Bulls. Mark, we're going to start how we've started every episode so far this season, and I want you to tell us your favorite soccer memory from 2024.
My favorite soccer memory from 2024 was Felipe Carvalho's goal at Citi Field in the Eastern Conference semifinal. Not only because it was a phenomenal golazo, but it really brought all the Red Bull fans at Citi Field that night to their feet and made it pretty clear that Citi Field, as well as New York City, was red that night. A very close second would be Sean Nealis's MLS Cup goal. Only the second player in team history to score in an MLS Cup, following John Wolyniec way back in 2008, which at the time cut LA Galaxy's lead to 2-1, which turned out to be the final score. But that moment as well of just absolute release in the stadium among the 2,000 Red Bull fans that made the trip was also great. So I would say 1 and 1A for 2024.
Excellent. Love it. Red Bull had a good season. I don't think anyone could really take that away from, the final result, losing MLS Cup. There's kind of no shame in that. And, I'm the one guy who kind of predicted that Red Bull was going to go somewhere this season, all the way from the beginning of last year. The pundits were very wrong on this squad for a few reasons we're going to talk about in a little bit. Overall, 11-14-9 record, 14 draws, 9 losses, 7th in the Eastern Conference, 55 goals scored, 50 goals allowed. That led to a +5 goal differential, and the final result was a 2-1 loss to the LA Galaxy in the MLS Cup final. A lot of highs, a lot of lows. Got off to an amazing start. I think we were ahead of the Shield race for the first 15 games of the season, it felt like. And then we had the mid-season lull, a whole bunch of draws. Mark, sum up 2024 for us.
The story of the 2024 Red Bulls was when Emil Forsberg played, New York was very, very good. And when he wasn't with the team, they were really kind of mediocre. We were saying in the run-up to the show, so many folks were absolutely stunned and amazed that New York was able to put together a late run and then a deep run all the way to MLS Cup and wonder what has changed here. What could possibly have happened? They were so miserable during the middle of the season. Yes, that's when Emil Forsberg missed 3 months due to international appearances and injury. And wouldn't you know it, when their number 10 DP was playing, their record was phenomenal. So, I think the story of 2024 was Forsberg, his impact on the entire squad, a fantastic defense-first approach running through the playoffs. I mean, Bob, you said it was a great season. It was a great postseason. It was a very mediocre regular season. Yes, the playoff streak continued. Finishing 7th was kind of an epic meh. And then everything changed that first game in Columbus when, Carvalho was able to get that goal, his second the first of his 2 big playoff goals, and we were off to the races.
Absolutely. You mentioned a little bit about how different the team was with Forsberg. I have the stats here. 10 wins, 5 draws, 6 losses when he was on the field for a significant amount of time. I said over 45 minutes. And 3 wins, 10 draws, 5 losses when he was not. That is 1.67 points per game when he plays, 1.06 points per game when he doesn't. The
Yeah.
difference there is 0.61 points per game. If we had all 0.61 points per game for his missing matches, we would have finished second. Still no supporter shield behind Inter Miami, but we would have been tied for Columbus if he had, assumedly not gotten hurt and we had won a couple of those matches. So I agree it was a very blah season, but soccer's a what have you done for me lately sport. And this team made it to MLS Cup, and in the end, that's what we're going to remember from this season. Alex, I see you looking to talk about something over there.
No, I agree with everything. I was at Mulligan's watching the MLS Cup final. A couple hundred Red Bull fans. That was one of the greatest times I had losing a match like ever in MLS for me. And being that close, I mean, it was just like Mark said, mediocre regular season. But when the playoffs came, they just hit a totally different gear, and it was fun to watch.
That could be like the Red Bull's new slogan: the most fun you'll ever have losing soccer games.
Yeah.
Didn't lose often last year. They were hard. They were hard to beat. They were a team that were really hard to beat. I mean, they, including the playoffs, right? They played nearly 40 games, and they lost 10 of them. I mean, I'd take that. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and a really good defense all season long. Very consistent in that respect.
Take a look at some of the contributors here offensively. Lewis Morgan, 13 goals, 5 assists. You had Emil Forsberg, 9 goals, 4 assists. Elias Manuel, 8 goals, 1 assist. Cameron Harper with 5 goals. Dante Van Zier, 4 goals, 9 assists. And Vigelman Carmona with 3 goals and 4 assists, mostly off the bench in that time. When I look at this, I see a lot of contributors, but not a whole lot of top-tier goal-scoring talent. Let's talk about the contributors a little bit for 2024.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I mean, obviously, these are all important goal contributions. Recall that 4 of Dante's assists came in the game, the big rainstorm win over Inter Miami in the early part of the season. While Dante hit a couple late, including he had the second goal against NYCFC in the playoffs, I think it's fair to say that Dante's time here continues to be a disappointment, and there's plenty of chatter out there that he's about to leave the club and head back to Belgium, and I don't honestly think that anyone's going to have a hard time with that. It's been a rocky time here for New York. Elias Manuel, 8 goals, but never really super consistent. And had some big goals this year. I think Cam Harper continues to show incredibly well. The 2 guys at the top, though, are where everything happens for New York. And as long as those 2 stay healthy, you can expect, I think, more success in 2025.
Absolutely. I do think that is a big part of the story there. And it seemed like there were just stretches where we just couldn't find the back of the net. Red Bull just couldn't score in the big moments. You look at all these draws, I mean, those are all opportunities to get a win, 15 of them during the course of the season, with just 1 game-winning goal being difference here. Scott.
Look, we talked a little bit in the run-up to the show about the New York offense. I think we just had the stat up here on the screen, something like 55 goals scored all season, plus 5 goal difference. Kind of not enough. It seems like New York last year was dependent on the big name players to get stuff done, and when they did not get stuff done, the depth didn't really have the oomph to push it over the line. And I don't want to tease the future here, but there might be an inkling that is continuing. Is that a fair assessment, Mark?
A fair assessment that that there's concerns over depth in the attack for 2025?
For 2024, and yes, preview.
Yeah. I think again, and it's interesting to look back and see Forsberg with only 4 assists because he was such an impactful player again when he played, and so with a lack of other folks pulling the strings for New York, it was a little tough. I mean, Manuel, who is now at RSL for 2025. His XG missed was significant. Dante Vanzeir, I think, led the league in XG missed. So it wasn't necessarily a question of generating scoring opportunities. It was often just a question of the finishing quality. And so, I know we're going to talk about 2025. Again, we have to consider the teammate MLS Cup hit the post in a bid to score, had Manuel blown up in the box in injury time without even a cursory VAR check, which was plainly baffling. But nevertheless, I mean, New York got 1 goal short of reaching their goal for the entire season and for their entire existence of winning MLS Cup. And so, yeah, it certainly could have been more proficient, but hopefully new players coming in, they'll certainly have a shot in improving over this crew.
So let's take a look at some of those players who are outgoing and incoming. A couple forwards, Corey Burke, Elias Manuel, they're gone. And Dante Vanzeir is someone who I put down as expected. I don't think that is a question. I fully expect him to be off of the team come opening day. He also lost Andre Reyes and John Tolkin. Tolkin is a player who we've previewed the last 4 seasons saying this is the year he's going to make a trip to Europe. I'm glad this is actually the year because he needs some time ahead of the World Cup, and if he, turns some heads overseas, maybe it's going to be John Tolkien time. Would love to see that. The one here I want to talk about is Andre Reyes. Very unceremonious parting. Late scratch from MLS Cup. Very last minute. In fact, he's the player who had to be subbed out. We didn't know. We got the starting lineup, and he was in it. And when the team came out, it was Noah Isla in his place. Of course, that is the position where 2 early goals go in the back of the net. We don't hear any much about the situation at all. There was some weird speculation I don't really want to get into right now, but I would say that there might be some connection there between him getting sold to San Diego after the availability issue in MLS Cup. Andre Reyes, I'm just going to open it up to the floor here.
Yeah, there's no truth to the rumor that he had become aware that he was going to be traded before the game. I can sink any rumors of that. Yeah, I mean, I think it was a combination of for those who weren't at MLS Cup. I mean, the sun was incredibly strong. The Red Bull fans who were there were fortunate enough to be under the overhang of the second deck through most of the game. But it was a very hot, bright sun that day. And I don't know whether it was nerves. I don't know whether it was a panic attack. I don't know if he's had the start of sunstroke. I don't know what it was. But Coach Schwartz basically said after warm-ups, he said he couldn't go, that the doctors tried to get him right. And as the team was running onto the field, he had no choice but to turn to Noah Isla and say, get on in. Isla was nursing an injury a little bit, and he, frankly, didn't warm up with the team, and 2 goals right up the gut, right past him. It's going to be one of those what-if moments for the history of this club, going back to the 2018 Eastern Conference Final with Kamar Lawrence's injury, right? It will just be another head-scratching chapter in this club's history. But Reyes is with San Diego now. Good for him. Great for Tolkien. Great for the club. I mean, he spent 10 years with New York, from being a 12-year-old entering the academy to being sold for $3 million to a Bundesliga team. That is absolutely the model in terms of what you want to do. I don't think anyone will miss Corey Burke. Manuel, again, not consistent enough. So it'll be really interesting to see, should Vanzeir move, to take the Vanzeir sale money and Tolkien's sale money, which can be converted immediately to GAM, what New York will do with that empty international roster spot.
Love it. I think that the team is being a little bit ambitious, and I know that that's not a word we like to hear very often, but here's kind of the proof that I've been pushing all off season. Like, we were in a playoff run. We were in the middle of sending a team to MLS Cup, and there were already rumors about Choupo-Moting, and we kind of knew that that was going to happen. You don't often see teams being as aggressive as to sign replacement players or go out and get new starting DPs during a playoff run. Can you talk about how like drastic of a shift that is? Now, we can argue about how these players are going to impact the club. That's a different story altogether.
Yeah.
But the fact that they were going out looking for players in the middle of that run, to me, that kind of reflects a little bit of an attitude there.
Yeah, and you heard that from head of sport Jochen Schneider in this season-ending press conference when he was very clear about saying, we need more experience on this team in order to get us to the next level. And it was really kind of a refutation of everything that New York had been for the last in the energy drink soccer era, right? Just going with homegrowns, going with young international talent and developing them. I think bringing a player like Forsberg in before the 24 season, who was the most decorated player since Thierry Henry to play for this team, there was a realization that, you can't just go with youth. You've got, if you are interested in winning, you have to go and make some serious investments. And bringing in players like Choupo-Moting and Alexander Hack, who's played for Schwartz at Mainz in the Bundesliga veteran, 31 years old. We'll try to build that relationship with Sean Nealis. And, I think Choupo-Moting is going to be a big question mark. He's 35 years old. I mean, this team hasn't gotten it right in bringing in forwards since Bradley Wright Phillips left the team. It's just been a comedy of meh. I mean, it's just player after player underperforming. Patrick Klimala, who came out this week and talked a little bit about, where his head was at during his time with Red Bulls, or Ashley Fletcher, or Samuel Teta, or Elias Manuel, or Tom Barlow, or Dante Van Zier. Just a lot of players that just were not clinical enough at this level. And so does Choupo-Moting have enough in the tank? I mean, he hasn't scored double digits in an age, right? So I think that'll be the big question.
Really nicely summed up. I was thinking about that as well. We talked about that beforehand. I think we'll cover it a little bit more as we go into the actual roster. I'm going to push us forward here into the depth chart. Look, Mark, let's finish with the offense. The offense is obviously the hot topic. Yeah. The defense was good. The goalie, right? Carlos Cornell, really a high performing player. The defense was high performing all season. Let's just take a look here at how we're starting. Obviously, Noah Eiley probably going to have a different role this season.
Yeah.
Alexander Hack being added. Do you maybe just want to jump in on how the defense is shaping up?
Yeah, I think. Could I just sneak in there? Sorry, I'm having some tech issues. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, you sound fantastic now. You got it right. Good. Yeah.
Thank you. The one question that we really have on this depth chart, and I wanted to point this out, is we don't know how this team is going to line up. They were a 4-4-2 or a 4-2-2-2 most of the season. Then the playoffs came, and we had that Columbus series, 5 in the back or 3 in the back. I guess it depends on what your thought is on that. And they rolled that through the rest of the postseason, and it worked really well. I saw that lineup go out the first time when we beat Columbus, and it reminded me of like last year's FA Cup, where Manchester United puts out this roster and they go for it in one game, get the win, and it's like, okay, that might not last a full season, but it was great in a one-off. But then Red Bulls ran it out again and again and again and again. So I need to at least be considering a 3-man back line. So I've had a 5-2-3 in different formations. This is kind of like a 5-2-1-2. I just want to preface that by saying we know the players, we don't know the positions or the roles necessarily.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think, a question, I mean, there are obviously lots of questions. Who is going to play on the left is the first question. Dylan Nealis had a phenomenal 2024.
Yes.
He leveled up in such a big way, and I really don't see him not starting. So then the question becomes, I mean, that's the entire question here, is who's going to play on the left side of the defense. I don't know if you bring in an Alexander Hack and not start him either. For my money, it's the relationship between Sean Nealis and Hack that's really going to determine the success. And you got to see over a number of years how well Reyes and Sean Nealis built themselves together and really played lockdown. You want to obviously, I mean, I thought Noah Isla played a whole lot for a 20-year-old, especially earlier in the season. And given, injuries and given yellow card suspensions, it was important that he continues to develop for New York. But you just can't put Dylan Nealis on the bench. I don't know what that means for Kyle Duncan on this team at the end of the day. He's still here. He's here for another year. He is an absolute liability playing on the left. So I don't know what that's going to be, but I do think that your 5 up top, at least in this setup, looks right to me. I think that makes complete sense. And if it's not Carvalho, then, if he's not here, then perhaps it's Stroud and Edelman playing in a homegrown sixes together. So I think we'll see. I can't imagine that Schwartz, who is among the most tactically gifted coaches that New York has ever had, is married to anything right now. I think he is going to go ahead. He will have a formation that will fit the opponent, that will fit his strengths. So, I mean, you got to put it down on a page so we can talk about it. But I wouldn't say that this is the starting lineup, especially with new LB signing.
Red Bull's tactical flexibility last season, especially to start the season, was something that I found really impressive. They were able to adapt in ways to make to make the game harder for each team that they played, in very different ways. I did think that was, I thought that was really impressive. Look, okay, just a couple quick things from me, and that I just kind of want to ask. First off, left back, Tolkien out, obviously good for the club to show that kind of ability to develop talent.
Yeah.
Certainly young talent is going to continue to look at the Red Bull organization as a pathway. So, great moment there. On our depth chart, Bob kind of has put in here new left back signing, with a couple of depth, guys that have already been in there. Is that kind of what you see as well, that this is a bit of a hole the team needs to fix?
Yeah, and I believe they'll fix it. I mean, I don't know if you're going to have someone ready to go for opening day. I mean, in a pinch, could Nealis play on the left and Duncan play on the right and a 4-man back line? Yes. Is that a long-term solution for 2025? No. So I fully expect, there are really 2 holes in this lineup now. One is another forward, and then one is a quality left back. So I think, watch this space, because I think we'll have news sooner rather than later.
I also wanted to ask about that center midfield pairing, though. Right now we're showing Daniel Edelman and Felipe Carvalho. Obviously, we're not sure Felipe where he's at right now. As I understand, there was a loan from Gremio, hoping he comes back.
If I understand correctly, he was like dead certain out at the end of the season, and now it seems like I haven't heard anything. Have you caught any updates? I mean, it was dead set. He's sold. He's gone. We're gonna fill his spot, and now it seems the preseason.
Silly season is silly, man. They call it silly season for a reason, and. Because not to knock on South American soccer journalists or the football journalists, but somebody on some site said something one time, and it's like, he's out the door, he's gone. What happened? It's strange. He's under contract till the summer. So,
Sure.
I mean,
I'm sure a lot of it would have to do with what Gremio plans. If they have a spot for him and they need him, I'm sure they can, fix it up so that he can stay. And if they don't, I'm sure that they would push for him to get back.
And that was an interesting signing anyway, because that's a position where we have depth. I mean, you could push, I have Kyle Duncan starting. You could push Nayless over and, kind of move some guys around the midfield here. Harper, Stroud, Edelman. You have guys. We were actually a little bit surprised mid-season when they said, oh, we're getting a new DP. We're like, oh, yeah, who are we going to sign? Number 6. Is that what we need right now?
I think, the one person that isn't on this chart, Bob, is Ronald Donkor, who I thought played very, very well, still very young, 20 years old this year. But he developed and showed, I thought, very well. I don't think he's an everyday starter yet in this league, but there's more depth there for sure. So, whether Carvalho stays or goes, and, Peter Stroud, before he got hurt, was also balling out big time in 2024. So, there's depth here, but I appreciated the team understanding how important Frankie Amaya was and trying to fill, Carvalho isn't really like for like. He's a bit more attacking strength and obviously has a cannon for a leg. I mean, my word, but I appreciated the effort. And we talked before we started about how the prevailing wisdom was that the summer window was a bit of a failure for New York because they only brought in Carvalho on loan, and then he scored 2 of the biggest playoff goals in team history. And it was like, no, it was a great window. That was fantastic.
The signing we didn't know we needed. I'll rephrase what I said when I said we didn't need.
I think the thing that's stuck out to me though is you look at the ages of the other players that we've been talking about. They're all 22 or younger.
Yeah.
Right. So Carvalho, he brings in an extra layer of experience into that squad. And I'm not I'm not saying that guys like Edelman or Stroud don't have it. They've been in the game for a long time now. They are performing at the highest level. They deserve to be there. But the extra years of game time, does sometimes make a difference in managing important moments or, being the guy to score an important goal. So anyway, it's just a question mark maybe that I just want to leave if for whatever reason he doesn't appear at camp in the next, little bit, that maybe that midfield is going to need another reinforcement.
Sure. I mean, but again, you put Donkor on the depth chart, you've got Edelman, Stroud, and Donkor. You can agree that you'd love to have one more. But and don't sleep on 15-year-old Adri Mehmeti because he's on the come up as well. I don't think Mehmeti's going to get first team minutes this year, although, some wagadoo July game at the Revs or something like that, and they'll throw the kid on for 8 minutes and something like that. But he's the next one to come through this system. So
I don't sleep on any kids in the Red Bull.
There you go. My man.
Yeah, but I don't think the Red Bulls are definitely done. We're definitely going to make at least 1 or 2 moves. I mean, they were linked with a winger from Costa Rica. They were linked with a left back from Chile. They were linked to a playmaking midfielder from Austria just recently. So I definitely think the Red Bulls are not done. We're going to the left back at least is going to get filled before. I think definitely before opening day.
Yeah, I mean they've got the cash to spend. They've got it. They are flush right now, especially if the Van Zier sale goes through. So. The money isn't an issue. It's as usual. It's finding the right fit.
Moving up one step to Emil Forsberg, we already talked about what he meant to this team in numbers, but I mean, a guy who scored in Champions League, a guy who scored in the World Cup, a guy who has all the stuff that you look for, and I just think he needs a little more respect. He should be up there in the conversation with Lucio Costa and Evander as those guys who, when he's not on the field, the team is a little different. He's starting as a number 10, but he attacks everywhere. He was, a little bit out left some matches last year. Just someone you want with the ball at their feet all the time, making special things happen. Behind him, Wigelman Carmona, seldom started, but actually ended up on our best performers sheet. Quite a few goals and assists last year. So again, someone who is a perennial, depth chart piece on this team, who's played very well and has just certainly earned that backup spot there. Let's move now to the attack. Lewis Morgan came to us as a winger. He is now playing a much better position as a striker. I was very surprised to see how much he had in his legs, especially after an injury season. He had some get up and go in those things, and absolutely, streaked up and down the field for Red Bull. And on the other side, I have Eric Choupo-Moting. We can discuss what he brings to the team. My first thing is size. I remember not so much last year, but certainly 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when you run out of ideas and you just got to fling the ball into the box, it's hard to rely on your 5'8" striker to take anyone down. Moting has size, he has scoring ability, so I do like that. And behind him, we signed a new young kid, Victor Bogac, and behind them, still one of my perennial favorites, and I guess that's weird saying because he's on the wrong side of 20 years old, Julian Hall, who I expect to get even more minutes this season, especially with some of that schedule congestion, a lot of competitions later on in the year. Can you talk about how you would see the top two, maybe like the two by minutes you're going to see the most, and how we're going to progress here in the attack?
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to talk about Wiki Carmona. Wiki Carmona has been playing with New York for 4 years. He's 21. He's still very young. And we've seen flashes of his goal-scoring ability and his ability to play at the 10. So I would hope that should Forsberg miss any part of the season, that Wiki can continue to mature into the player that I think everyone wants him to be and will develop and move on eventually. You talked about Lewis. I think it was pretty evident by the end of the year that Lewis was kind of shot. And I think when you think about his playoff contributions, which were not much from a score sheet standpoint, Lewis really needed a rest. And consider that in the Eastern Conference Final and in the MLS Cup, it was center backs who were scoring the goals for the New York Red Bulls, which is not exactly, what you're looking for. So, big questions on how often Choupo-Moting will be able to go, how he'll find MLS. We know that international players most of the time take half a season to get acclimated. I think the real question is, what does he have left in the tank? And, he hasn't blown anyone's hair back in a very long time in terms of his goal scoring. I mean, Victor Bogac, the biggest transfer ever out of the second division Polish league. Don't laugh. That's a big deal over there. They'll get on you. That's a big
He's
deal.
also like 6'4".
Yeah, fantastic.
And he turned his down last year. Let's not forget that too.
Yes. Well, he's also very, very young. And so, his ability to make this transition, being away from home for the first time, living in a absolutely wackadoo off the rails country right now, and thinking about making the transition to being an everyday performing pro will probably take some time. And I hope that Red Bulls fans are a little, give him that time to kind of figure it out. We saw with Jornsson a number of years ago, when a young player comes across, it can work out, or it could really not work out. And Hall, continues to have, I think, a massive, massive upside. And he scored some late game tying goals this year as a 15-year-old and a 16-year-old. And so, I think the real question, the biggest question marks are, can the significant veterans, Choupo-Moting and Forsberg, and more often than not, Morgan, who will be 28, 29 this year?
28, 29, yeah.
28, 29. I mean, it's not exactly Lampard and Pirlo playing for the blue team in 2015, but they're getting up there. They're getting up there.
Nice one.
Yeah. I just real quick, I just want to point out Lewis Morgan played like 2,800 minutes last season. Like you mentioned, that maybe was too many minutes.
Coming back from season-ending injury, yeah.
Yes.
Hip injury too, yeah.
Yeah, big
That's a tough thing. That's a tough thing to come back from.
It says a lot that he was able to do it, but obviously maybe just ran out of juice at the end of the season. That's the business end of the deal. It's not what you want to run out of juice. Eric Choupo-Moting played like 1,100 minutes. Obviously we've talked about You mentioned earlier how he has like 3 double-digit seasons in the last ever, and certainly only one in the last decade.
What could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong? I am, Victor Bogash has like 8 professional goals in the second division. Julian
It's a
Hall.
tough division, though. You don't know.
No,
Sorry,
I'm
shut up.
not knocking it at all. There's a point where I'm saying I think there's maybe a concern that this team again doesn't
Struggles.
have enough firepower when the first group is not on. And I guess I just want to ask, like, how many games do you realistically think Morgan and Choupo-Moting and Forsberg are going to start together? All 3 of them.
I would set the over underline at like 19.
Yeah, I was thinking 20.
Like a little more than half the season, but not more than half the season.
Here's a completely different question because my answer is going to be yes. Would you be happy if 3 of them could start 20 games together this season?
As opposed to less than 20 games.
As opposed to less than 20 games, yeah.
Yes, I would like all of the games, please, sir.
I think that is good because we've had innings eaters at the striker position for a few years now. Manuel, well, you'll see Scott over there in Salt Lake City. You'll see how some of these guys work. For me, I'm happy. I'm optimistic about the upside, and sometimes just trying something new is the approach you got to take because we know what Van Zier and Manuel can do together. We know what that looks like. It's time to try something new. So I'm happily optimistic.
Yeah, and you have to think again, another year with the Neali. Hopefully, Alexander Hack comes in and is every bit the consummate pro that we want and that we expect, which will allow the team to steal points on games that they continue to work out how it is up top. And again, I'm not going to use "don't sleep on" anymore, but like I've been so happy with Cam Harper's development, and he is gained so much confidence over the course of the year. And if you recall, with Harper, with Schwartz coming, I mean, he and Lassane like got it. They were absolutely rock solid together. And in speaking with Harper last year, he had to go back to the back of the line with a new coach and Sandra Schwartz coming in and slowly earn his playing time back to the point where he scored some iconic goals and he was a very important piece. And we haven't really talked about him, and I'm just a big fan. He's a great kid. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what he brings. Okay, storylines.
We've already touched on each and every one. What does Choupo-Moting have in the tank? We don't know. Let's find out together. What does Red Bull offense look like at 100%? We don't know. Let's find out together. And does Red Bull keep the 5-man back line they use in the playoffs? Maybe if you want to run with 3 center backs, you need 5 good center backs on the roster. We have 4-ish now, so I guess this is all things we're going to find out together. Did not know we were going to answer them before, but let's get to our predictions for this season. The first 3 go together. What is a realistic outcome for this season? What is the team's best possible outcome? And what is the team's worst possible outcome? Let's throw it to you first, Mark.
I will take you into the Wayback Machine to the year after the Red Bulls made their only other MLS Cup, 2009. At what point they were the worst team in club history. 2009 was the absolute nadir of this team. The arena was getting built. The team was just absolutely abjectly horrible. Now, I don't expect them to do that. Do I expect the playoff streak to continue? Absolutely. A lot of teams in the East got better. And I think the question that we have to ask ourselves is, Atlanta with an endless pocketbook is reloading with more South American stars every single day, right? Wilfred Zaha coming to play at Charlotte, phenomenal. It's a great signing for them. I don't know what's happening in New England. Like when you look at the teams that finished below New York on the table, Chicago Fire is retooling, and obviously they're not signing Neymar, but Mansueto out in Chicago really has to do something special to fill Soldier Field and really needs to make some signings to get some attention in the town. So, DC United under Lassane, I don't necessarily get a massive sense that they're in for a big improvement. And again, at this point, as you guys are going through 30 MLS teams, it's tough to know who's going to be good, right? I mean, like, we know that Miami will be Miami, and we know that Cincinnati will be okay. I don't know if they will. You know, Acosta didn't show up to training camp, and we know that Columbus will obviously be very good. And so
Acosta did show up today, I think.
Oh, he did?
I think he might have just been wearing like street clothes, but I think he was in the realm of thinking about being.
He walked by, he's like, "Hey, what's going on in here?"
He only pulled the half Reynoso.
There you go, half a Reynoso. But nevertheless, I honestly think that continuing the playoff streak is where we're at. You know, challenging for top 4 is, I think, what you want to do. And although New York did not need home field advantage in 2024's playoff, I would like to think that they're a 4 or 5 team, that they are challenging for the home playoff spots. And, you know, as we know, anything goes.
I think that is a realistic outcome. I mean, best possible outcome is this team wins a whole lot of ball games and stays in it. We already talked about the math. A healthier squad could have been up to second place without any
really
drastic improvement in the way that they were playing. I think Miami, one of these squads is. I think Charlotte is one that's gonna be a slam dunk this year. But those are our teams that Red Bull's beaten. We got there. So I want to hope for more of the best. I would say I would be happy with 2 playoff wins, like get to the Eastern final again, and that would be I would be ecstatic, or just score more goals than last year as a base one. Scott, you're kind of the outsider on the squad, so I want to throw to you. What do you think a realistic best and worst possible outcome would be?
Well, I do think a realistic outcome involves playoff soccer. Once again, the team, there's little question marks here and there, but this team doesn't have gaping holes anywhere on the field. There are some things that are going to have to go right, but everybody's in that boat. That's not a unique position. So I absolutely think realistic is being up in a comfortable playoff qualification spot and being in a position to do what you did last year. The best possible outcome, if some things kind of go your way and other teams, clear the path for you the way that so slightly happened this last season, MLS Cup could be another thing on the horizon. There is certainly the potential for improvement out of the offense. There's potential for things to get better. The worst possible outcome, look, if the offense doesn't click, if players, are not available, if that front 3 only plays together 10 times, you know what I mean? If Choupo-Moting
is a massive bust,
is a bust, exactly. Because then he won't even have the legs to do the work that the other guys that Burke and Manuel were doing. If that kind of thing happens and the offense cannot put up at least 55 goals, this is a team that is going to be, really struggling in those last few playoff spots because the East did get better.
And I don't even want to throw this out into the universe, but there is a position that Red Bull got much weaker at this today with the retirement. We haven't talked about Carlos Cornell, the goaltender position, all day today, and his sub Ryan Mira, who played all of U.S. Open Cup matches, played a lot for Red Bull, even though he was after, I believe it was a hip injury when he was young, never quite broke back into the starting squad. If something happened to Cornell, we don't know what's back there right now. Marjucci, he's like one of the backup players. That could be a position of potential strength or potential weakness real quickly, because Cornell's someone who was oft injured last season too. So I kind of don't want to even throw that out there into the universe. The life of a goalie is, you make that penalty save, you're on everyone's good list, you make an errant back pass like Cornell did 2 years ago, a couple games in a row, and everyone's shipping you out of town. So I think that's a situation that got a little more difficult with what to me was a little bit of an unexpected retirement today.
Yeah, and we can't say enough about Ryan Mara. I mean, he is the last link to the Shield era for this team. The longest serving Red Bull now is Sean Nealis, who joined the club in 2019, right? So there is literally no one on the New York Red Bulls that has won a Supporter Shield. That is a long time ago now. It was 7 years ago the last time this team was a frequent Cup contender. And Scott and Bob and Alex. The idea of, I think if there's anything that we saw this year, it's the unpredictability of the MLS Cup playoffs, right? The margin of error goes to zero. It's one flick of a head in Orlando, and New York's going to the game, and Orlando isn't, right? And so, sure, yes, the idea of winning, doing a deep playoff run, great. But at the end of the day, you just have to be in the tournament, and no team showed that more than New York this year in 2024. So, whether it's winning one series or two series or three series or three games or going all the way, it's impossible on January 22nd to say if these things go right. I mean, it literally is in the moment that day. Can they get the job done? So for me, it's, are they a playoff team? Do they get a home field in the first half? And that's kind of as far as I'm willing to go with it. And, hopefully it works out. But you got to be in it to win it. So, that's my piece.
Absolutely. Alex, any last words?
No, I don't think the Red Bull are done. Depth is going to be an issue. I agree with everything you guys say. I think they could be a top 4 team. Injuries again, Forsberg goes down, we're in trouble. Simple as that. Again, Red Bulls are going to sign at least 1 or 2 more players, and then we'll decide where to go. I think they definitely need a forward, and definitely a left back. They need to address that as soon as possible.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Mark, one more time, let us know where we can find your work.
Oh, I don't know. The show is called Seeing Red. We're launching our we already did. We launched our 16th season covering the New York Red Bulls last week on a YouTube channel. We're on Blue Sky. Please find us there, or on Insta. We're trying.
I got one more question.
Oh,
one more question for Mark.
Yeah.
Who's our biggest rival now? Is it NYCFC or DC United?
I think it's very clear for just about anyone that it's NYCFC, and
that is good. That's yes.
Atlanta United. Still not getting that.
It's clearly Nashville. So you could certainly follow the show. It's Seeing Red NY on just about any platform. We're trying to move away from the oligarchy ones to the less oligarchy ones, but your mileage may vary. Thanks so much, guys. It's always great to talk.
Thank you for being with us. Thank you for being patient through some Texas issues earlier. And thank you, everyone, for checking in. Remember, all 30 teams coming at you this off season, only on the Designated Pundits.